Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Pulcinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with us today, and I have such an awesome guest. I am so excited. If you guys do not know, if you have not been following my stories, I have already been shouting out Annette anyway. So I am so excited to be able to finally get her on the podcast. We've been working on this for so long. So Annette, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Oh, my pleasure, Kat. I'm super excited to be here.
Yay! Oh my gosh, we're going to have so many things to talk about, and I'm really hoping I don't derail this conversation and go down a rabbit hole. So, Annette, do us a favor, tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do.
Okay, so my name is Annette, and I create magic with words. I am a copywriter and content strategist for female business coaches, consultants, and design professionals. I tell their stories and highlight their superpowers so that they can attract and convert the clients that they love. So that's me in a nutshell. Woohoo!
I love it. I love this creating magic with words. I told you this. I love your business. I love the way that you have your taglines. Like, I am such a fan of the wizardry and the magic. Like, okay, I'm also like the Harry Potter kid. Like that
Me too. Me too. Me too. Like I've seen those movies dozens and dozens and dozens of times.
Oh my gosh.
So
It never gets old. I absolutely love it. So I have to ask then because I know you've been doing this for a while. What made you come up with magic? Like where was the mesh within that when you talk about your rigid wizardry? I can't speak this morning. Your wizardry with words and creating this magic. Like how did that come about? Because to me, that's so unique to be able to.
It's like a spark of information, like inspiration. I honestly don't know where it came from. I must have been watching Harry Potter. I mean, for sure. It's one of those things, but it's so like captured me, like the wizardry, and I thought I could be a wizard. And when you find words that work with you, you can add so many things. Like I can talk about spell binding. See, I can't talk either. Spell binding copy, or charming people, or working your spells, or have a process that's like magical. And all of these things conjure up an image for your audience. And so you have to use these words. And when you find something with your business, it's one of the things you want to be able to find words that you can then stretch into all different kinds of like spaces and use them in all different kinds of ways. But I love the magic with words and leaning full into it. I mean, lean into it. If you're building a personal brand, lean into everything that goes with it.
Yeah. And what's really interesting too is I have met several people who, have like this specific brand and all the words that they use with it are so uniquely tied into it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love the way that you speak to your content and the way that you share your stuff on LinkedIn and other things. Like it's such a story, but at the same time, there's so much that's like, if you're really paying attention, you really can be like, oh, she put that word in there. Oh, that one really works with that. Like I love it, right? Like I'm a huge fan of imagery and imagination. And so if I can read something and I feel like I can visualize it, or it sparks something, right? I'm more apt to read it. And we've had this conversation. I'm not a
Right.
huge reader. I'm not going to read like your 10 pages on your on your blog.
Nobody's going to
Just
read it. Nobody's going to
that's
read.
very
Nobody
true.
is going to read your 10 pages. I'm going to tell everybody that's listening, do not write those big paragraphs with lots and lots and lots of words. Nobody wants to read them. So make sure you break them up. Make sure you leave a lot of white space. Make sure you bold and highlight. But yeah, the idea is to find the words that work with your audience and find those words that resonate and find those words that spark that image and that inspiration. Because like even when I'm writing and I'm telling a story, I'm bringing in all the senses. So I'm talking about what it's like to sit in your kitchen in the morning and you feel the light coming in from the windows outside and you can drink your hot tea with mint and you're eating your cinnamon roll, right? It's this warm cinnamon roll. You can even smell, you can begin to smell the cinnamon. You can even taste it in your mouth. And that's what you want to do when you're talking about what you do or writing to your audience. You want to encompass all of that. You hear the little birds chirping outside. I'm saying the words, and your audience is probably like they're listening. Is that a robin? Is that a stork?
And it's interesting too, because, when you think about this, and I've had several people on that are like speaker coaches and things like that, they all say the same thing. Like, we are built to tell stories and share stories. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if we're built to tell and share those stories, we're also meant to intake those things that way as well. But you also said something else, which was make sure that your words resonate with your audience. Now, this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I really want to kind of touch on for just a second, because there is a difference between using words that you like or
Mm-hmm.
terminology within your industry versus using words that resonate with your audience. And I think that this is where a lot of people get mixed up, myself included. That's why I hired Annette instead of me doing it. But this is the reason why people have that disconnect, because we do get into this space, we start becoming an entrepreneur and we're like, okay, and we start using this terminology of being healed or trauma or gaslighting. But like, if your audience is not at that place of hearing those words, then you're actually going right over their head. Right. And so, like you were saying, it's very, very important to make sure that you resonate with your audience. So
Mm-hmm.
remembering the terms that you used when you were in whatever space you are, because right, ultimately, a lot of us, and I'd love to know your backstory as well,
Right.
when we get into whatever it is we get into, it's because of something that was lacking, it's because of something that we craved or something we wanted to do, and then that kind of led us in that direction. So there is a piece of us that has the ability to relate to the audience that we are trying to serve. Yet when we get in this business space, we're like, okay, these are the words we got to
Right.
use. This is what we got to focus on. And like, we completely forget that, like, this is where we were at. This is why we wanted it. And we're supposed to still use those things as
Right.
well.
That's that. I mean, the jargon is definitely a problem. People use the jargon, even when you say gaslighting, and I'm thinking I don't necessarily know what that is, and so now I have to go to my dictionary and I have to look up. Okay, all right. I'm dating myself. Nobody goes to a dictionary anymore, but you would Google. I had to Google like
Google.
what is gaslighting. I had to Google what is gaslighting to understand what that is. And I think we do as working in business as business women or men. We do forget that our audience doesn't necessarily understand the words that we're using, and we have to talk at their level. I tell, like, even there was a coach for health, and they talk about like your metabolism. So I'm thinking, okay, so I don't really know what that is, and like I just kind of want to fit into that little black dress that I used to wear when I was like 20. Like, talk to me at that level. Don't tell me about like processed foods. I don't understand what that is. Like, should I be eating bread or not eating bread? Kind of like take it to that other level. And I tell people, in order to find their words, the right words to use, go to their testimonials. Go to your testimonials, because your testimonials are the words that your clients are using. What are they saying to you when they're on a conversation with you? These are words that you can put in, and these are the words that are going to resonate, because that's they relate. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of take it down a level, so that I'm not talking about like, marketing funnels. People are like, what is a marketing funnel? Like, what is that? What's a marketing funnel? I'm like, okay, well, where you bring it down is, do you have trouble getting clients? I mean, that's more of a level that people understand, as opposed to, you know, is your marketing funnel having trouble? Like, nobody's going to get that, and it's not going to resonate. So you have to really relate to the people and use the words that they use.
And it's just like, if you think about this, this is even outside of, a business, but like when you're speaking to colleagues, when you're speaking to your kids, when you're speaking to family, you're using terms that you are
Mhm.
used to hearing back and forth, right? Or if you're speaking to a young child, right, you come down to their level to have that conversation
Right.
at their level. And that's something to remember as well. Like if you are disconnected with your kids or your
Right.
family or your spouse, pay attention to the words that you're using. Are the words that you're using, are they things that you found off of TikTok and everything else? And you're using all these terms and people are like, I don't get what you're trying to explain to me, right? Or are you having this conversation to where people are understanding what it is you're saying because you're using the terms that they're used to hearing or you're on their level? And so it's really
Mhm.
interesting when I think about like the words to use and what resonates with people, it comes down to communication, like right at a very large
Mhm.
scale. That's what it is. It's communication, and that is something that we use every single day of our lives, regardless of what industry they're in. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you're working for a company, you still have to know how to have the conversations with your boss or your colleagues. Like you still have to be aware of that. And sometimes I think, especially with social media, right, we get caught up in whatever terms make sense on socials, and then we try to use that in everyday conversations, and then people get lost and we're like, I don't understand why you don't get me, right? So I think this can
Right.
go, right, like it's definitely for business, but it's definitely something to like think about for anyone that's
Sure.
listening that is not in this space. This is something you need to be aware of, like on a regular basis, of how you're communicating with everyone that's around you.
Right. You have to use words that other people, that the person that you're talking to understands and at their level, and not be like Chat GPT or anything and pushing like words out there that, oh, you need to use these words. Like you can tell when they're not your authentic words, and speak words that you use, words that resonate with you. There are words that I would never use. And I'm thinking that, and it doesn't sound like the person. So when you're
Hmm.
writing, for sure, and when you're talking, you want to be sure that whatever you're saying, because people communicate whether you're on, they receive information at different levels. Like some people like to read, and some people like to watch videos, and some people like to, I don't know, hear like the stories, books on tape, and things like that. And so
Hmm.
it's different. We're receiving information in different media, and so we just have to be aware of what media the person likes to receive it, and make sure that our audience is going to want it in multiple ways. And so we have to be able to communicate with them on multiple levels, multiple ways, with words that resonate, words that make sense to them. And maybe even the word resonate is weird. Like, do you get me? Is what I'm saying making sense? I mean, is that like a word that we resonate? Like, I don't know. I wonder if like 10 years ago we would have said the word resonate, or if that's just something
Ooh.
that we've been, right. I mean, these are just, and so when I'm writing, I'm always thinking about like what's the words? What are the words? And how do you take those words? And they don't have to be like huge words. Like when you're writing your yearly review, like I used to write a yearly review for people at Intel. And I used to say they implemented, they optimized, they strategized. I used to use like all these big words because, and you do on your resume because you want to sound more important. But when you're talking to somebody and you're writing a website copy, you don't, I mean, strategize and okay, yeah, we have rockets in our area, but not me. I don't need to run. This is part of life.
Okay. We'll talk
Okay,
about that in a second. We'll get the background story too. So just everybody
you
hang
get the
on to your
background.
seats.
Hang on to your seats. If I have to jump, you'll just cut and we'll re-record
Yes.
it, and everything will be fine.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I heard the like noise a bit. So yeah, you have to have the words that resonate and just be able to relate to your audience, and in
Yeah.
words that you use, words that make sense to you, and words that, and when you want to know the backstory, so the backstory is that I grew up, I'm 60 plus, so I grew up in a time where women were barefoot pregnant in the kitchen. Like there was no voice for women. I moved to a foreign country where I didn't have the language. And so I felt stifled. I felt like I didn't have a voice. I felt like I couldn't speak. And so that's why I think it's really important to get those messages out, especially for women to stand up, use their voice, be heard, because we've been ignored for so long that I think that it's really important. And that's why I do what I do.
I love this. And you know, and you talk about this like moving to a foreign country. Not only did you move to a foreign country where you don't know a language, but there's a lot of things going on in this area. And you
Mhm.
know, our news media here doesn't necessarily talk about that stuff. You know, like we've talked about this before. My husband has a friend that's over here, has is over there, and I have learned so much from him of understanding the struggles that you all face, you know, even knowing that you went to that country and, you know, you weren't necessarily born and raised there, but you're still a part of what is going on. Like this is a very real thing. And so, not to totally shift the conversation, but just for the audience to understand as well, you know, that when you're having conversations with people, it's very important to pay attention to who they are and how they are communicating back because we do
Mhm.
have different cultures, we do have different backgrounds, we do have people from different countries. And, you know, depending on what is going on in their life may also affect how they are communicating with you. And so being aware of that is very, very important and understanding that versus well,
Mhm.
you didn't say it this way, and this is how I kind of expected you to say it, right? We have to be able to
Right.
understand these different terms and the different ways that people talk or the different ways that people describe, and then also learn to ask questions back to that, right? I mean, that's one thing that you
Mhm.
did with me when we were working together. Poor Annette. She was asking me questions constantly because I call myself, I tell anybody that I work with, I am a vomit of words. Okay. When I get in the mode, when I am trying to brainstorm, for me, it doesn't work to write it down or just be like, this is what I'm thinking. Like, I have to literally walk you through my process. Okay. So, if anybody else is out there, you guys can laugh with me. But I am that person. My brain processes things. And so, I have to walk you kind of through the process to explain to you what I'm thinking, to explain to you what I'm trying to get to before poor Annette actually gets the actual story at the very end. I don't know how to jump from A to B. I have to go A1, A2, A3 all the
But
way
most
around.
people need to do that. Most people need to do that. I can't even like so any everybody with your clients. I mean, you're here, you're at a starting point. Your client's at a starting point and they want to get to a finish line. And so you have to walk them through that process. You can't
It's
take
very
them from
true.
A to Z. You have to step along the way. You have to understand what they're thinking. You have to take them, from A to B, B to C, C to D, and on and on and on. So it's perfectly like to me, it made perfect sense. And you want to, I mean, because that's what I mean, I call it a brain dump. I tell my people they just brain dump, and then based on the
Yes.
brain dump, then you like pull out what makes sense and create order from the chaos, and that's fine. And to me, it makes sense to me to do it that way, and I can't think of any other way to do it. But but that's the way that I communicate, and so I have to work with the way people communicate, and I want to work with people that communicate the way I communicate even if they have different beliefs or feelings or thoughts or whatever. I mean, that's, when we talked about, not only working with the same person, like not everybody's going to be like me. Nobody's going to be like me. I'm one of a kind, right? You're one of a kind. We're all one of a kind. And so you want to work with people that are like you, but they also have differences and you have to respect them. I remember when I worked at
Mm.
Intel, we had training for like how to work with people from like Malaysia.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
so we definitely, I mean, because people from the Far East have a different way of life and different beliefs and different thoughts. And so what things that I might do, like even when working on the computer and I'm looking at their screen, if I'm jumping between screen to screen, they don't necessarily like that. They want you to like orderly go through things because that's the way they think and that's the
Mm.
way they were brought up. So we had lots of trainings on how to work with people that were outside of your specific culture. And so yeah, you have to learn to deal with a lot of other people and respect them. I think is really important. Respect and understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you brought that up too, because, I got to thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, I think of how many people that I have spoke with or, have worked with in some capacity that's in a different country. And I think that's one of my favorite things is to be able to learn about their cultures and the things that they do. I've
Hmm.
got a VA that's from the Philippines and I absolutely adore
Hmm.
her. She's a hard worker, and every person I've ever worked with in the Philippines is a very hard worker, and they consider themselves more task oriented, right? So the
Hmm.
more that I can give her a task list that she can check the boxes, that makes her happy. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's make the
Right.
check boxes. And so like that's what we did when she was started on the podcast, which is wonderful. My husband, he's in IT, so they work with a lot of people from
Hmm.
India. They're very different
Hmm.
way that they process. And it's really interesting when my husband and I will talk after work and he's like, yeah, I was working with this one guy and he's from India. And so, they do it this way, this way, this way. And I'm like, really? Like to me, I think to me, that's the fascinating part. I think I love, because
Yeah.
like you said, that's what makes us different. That's what makes us unique. And I love the different cultures. But in the same time, it's also very, important to also be aware of that as well. And then you understand, like, hey, am I speaking to those people? Am I
Hmm.
speaking to these different cultures? And if so, how does that wording maybe need to shift to sound so that it resonates with them, right? So that they
Right.
understand it. Or is this the person and do I know how they're kind of speaking? And I love, like you said earlier, of making sure that you're pulling from testimonials and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so if you don't have testimonials, you should like feedback people, feedback, right? We get feedback in our
Right.
relationships. We get feedback from our kids, a lot of unsolicited feedback. No, just kidding. We get feedback from our
I get.
family. We get
Hmm.
feedback everywhere all the time. And when you have those in-depth conversations where you realize that like there's that spark, there's that understanding, it's very important to be aware of that wording. What's really funny is, when you were talking about all of this, I was like, oh my gosh, back when
Back
I worked in the
when.
medical field, back when I worked in the medical field, one of the things that I did was I dealt with a lot of people's finances. And
Hmm.
so the office that I worked at was a chiropractic office, and I would have to sit down and explain their treatment plans and so on and so forth and da 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 da. And in the beginning, I was very medically worded, right?
Right.
So I would explain the stuff, and then they would be like, I have no clue what you said. And so I had to learn every time that I would go into one of those sittings and have a conversation about finances and what we were going to do. I had to learn how to change those things. So I got really good at paying attention to the repeat questions that people asked. And
Hmm.
then that way, when we were having a conversation with a new person, I already knew how to incorporate some of those questions and
Right.
give the information, right? And it makes that conversation flow, one, so much better, but two, that person feels like you really just gave them a lot of value because you already answered so many things that they
Right.
were already thinking. And that's a really, really great way to make people be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like I got so much information because you were actively listening to others who have asked questions or have give feedback, and you've made sure that you've incorporated those repeat pieces. And it really does. I use that all the time with all kinds of things that I do. Even with the law enforcement that I just spoke to, I asked them for that feedback and we did an open Q&A so I could hear what they were asking. So when
Right.
I go and do the next one, right, I can tweak a little bit of how I have those conversations if I start hearing the same question. This is how
Hmm.
it also makes it a little bit more efficient, I think, as well, but it really makes people
Right.
feel like you are providing like the utmost value.
Right. And you're speaking directly to them and they understand. And they're like, oh, she gets me. Oh, she understands. She knows what I'm talking about. And I think that that's what's really important, whether you're talking or you're, on video or on social media, or whether you're writing like copy on your website or emails to people, it's direct. You're giving them, they say, oh, she gets me. That's why, like a lot of the times, when we're doing a website and you talk, you have the big above the fold. That's because way back when in the day when there were newspapers that were folded over, it was all the text above where the fold was. So that's where that came from. So that's above
I
the fold.
love that.
Yeah. So now you know the like copywriting stuff. You one way to like even a copywriter, oh, above the fold, and people are like, is that like what is that? What I don't what's folded? I don't understand. It's like a piece of paper on a screen. It's straight. There's no folding here. So you explain it to them and then they get it. And then down further, then you talk about the pain points, like so that the person reading it, they say, Oh yeah, this is my pain point, or that's my pain point. And if you have like four or five, and they said, "Oh, I might not have the first pain point, but I might have the second or the third pain point," and this person really understands me, and if they understand me, then let's see how they can help me solve my problem, because
Mm,
that's really what you're doing. So you're kind of like thinking about what their needs are, what how they say it, and the pain points are, or is your metabolism, yada. I have no idea. I wouldn't know if my metabolism was like high or low, or I wouldn't know, but like I definitely know that I can't fit into that little black dress, or I can't fit into my jeans and things like that. And so those are that communication. That's where you want to make sure that you are hitting the nail on the head, and connecting with your audience, regardless
hmm.
of whether you're speaking on stage and or writing copy. And yeah, so
Yeah. Let me ask you
definitely
this
fun.
then, because we're talking about, when people are writing copy or you're doing things on their website and, you talk about the pain points and stuff like that. Do you feel like when you are still writing this, especially like on a website, that in a sense you're still telling a story? So there's like, I don't know, different pieces and components that almost need to like flow through the whole thing so you don't feel like you're leaving people hanging? Or how does that work in your opinion in regards to that?
So you're talking about the before and the after,
Mm,
right? Like the before is the pain. We're all in pain before, right? Nobody wants to be in pain. I can't think of any. Maybe you have somebody in your audience that, and if you like pain, I respect you and you go for it. But I'm totally not into pain. So you're taking your audience from that pain point, that the position in pain, and then you're solving the problems, and that's the after. Like imagine what would happen if, and so you're painting them the picture of what it could be like after, and then showing them how you can help them with that transformation.
yeah,
And so
I love
you
that.
are telling a story. And even like as you look at your website, you're thinking about the pieces, like how does somebody go from the first page to the second page to the third page? Like how do they flow? What's the flow for somebody when you're writing emails? What's the flow to go from the beginning of the mail to the middle of the mail to the end of the mail, so that you're getting them to, call to action to actually do whatever it is that you're asking them to do at the bottom. So there's always like a story involved to move people through, so that
Hmm.
they want to work with you, or change their life in some way.
It was really interesting too, is like when I think about this, I'm like everything that I think that we do is based in some type of story. I mean, that's the whole reason why we love movies, right?
Right.
It's the whole reason why people love books, is because of that. And I love that you were talking about the emails as well, because that makes a lot of sense too, of making sure you've got not only this flow, but you've got some of these pieces in it. And you said this like way in the beginning, which was make sure that you have like the white space and some pieces are
Mm-hmm.
bolded or highlighted. Okay, we got to talk about this for just a second because I started doing this like years ago before I even got into the entrepreneur space. It was something I did when I worked in corporate. It's something that I did when I was in real estate because I realized that most people, especially when they get an email, they kind of like scan read it, is what I call
Mm-hmm.
it, right? They kind of like scan over the words. And so when you separate out certain things, it kind of makes them go to that next one and read a little bit more before they go to the next one. And when you bold something, they're like, oh, wait, now I got to read the whole sentence because that's bold. It's really interesting how our brains like pay
Yeah,
attention to those little pieces.
of course, of course. Like even if you think about like the FedEx symbol, like if you look at that there, right, there's an arrow. That's the empty space. There's an arrow that's taking you from Fed to X. It's that
I
arrow in the
never thought about this.
it's all of these things when people are designing their logos and things like that, all of those things, the empty spaces are just as important as the full spaces. See, this is what you learn when you're in architecture school and you teach people and they design spaces. You talk about the spaces and how you feel in the spaces, and how you feel when you're reading the piece of copy, and how you feel when you're moving through a story, and making them, and they do, everybody skims, we're all skimming. Nobody has time to read everything.
Mm.
I think we're even fast forwarding through some of those movies too.
You
You're on Netflix. I know what they're
Depends on
doing.
how
Okay,
good the movie is. Depends on
right,
how good the
right,
movie is.
right. Like
But
let's just get to the end.
if it's like I'm not really sure, but like I hate leaving
Right.
it hanging because I'm definitely that person. I'm like, but I kind of need to know how it ends, because otherwise I'm going to think about it for the next like 5 days. But no, that's really interesting. I didn't even think about that. When you think of logo designs and things like that, that space. And you're in architecture, girl, you got all kinds of stuff in your background. Like
Yeah,
what?
yes. That's why I do a lot of writing for architects and interior designers because I studied architecture and I have a degree in architecture. I know now the pieces all fall into place.
Yeah, right.
See,
Like
now
we
I'm
just
telling you a story. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know that walls have thickness? It's something that I learned right away with the first model that I built. Like it's not just a single pencil line on the paper. It's, that they have thickness. Yeah.
really
Yes. Yes. Walls have thickness, believe it or
interesting.
not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love this.
So
Oh, we're just learning all kinds of things today. See, you guys, this is even more the reason why. You know what's really interesting though? And I love this because you have such a diverse background in the things that you have done that I think that that in itself is kind of what brings in that unique perspective of it. It's one thing, and not to shame absolutely anyone, but you do have some people that have been doing the same thing for so long that they can be kind of stuck in a way that they do stuff, and it's a little hard sometimes to like see outside of what you've already been doing for so long, right? Unless you're constantly asking for different perspectives and you're intaking that information. But when you have someone like you that has like this really rich, diverse background,
mm,
you get the ability to almost have a bird's eye view of seeing the way that people should write their content or the way the wording should be on their websites. And it's totally different from someone that went to school just to be able to do words and things like that, and now they've just been in this copywriting space. Again, I'm not faulting anyone that's been in this because I've met some amazing copywriters that have been doing this for years, but it's just really cool because you have a different perspective to be able to
right.
come down and look into it from a completely different lens, because I guarantee you were taking the things that you learned at Intel and the things that you learned with these other
Mm-hmm.
people, and you're like, okay, how do we incorporate this piece? And again, like you said earlier, right? That's what makes us unique. That's what makes every
Right.
single one of us an individual that's completely different. But I just think it's really cool to understand people's backgrounds and their perspectives and where their brains are kind of coming from, because you can see that when people are creating things. And now it makes a lot of sense as to why you can handle my overload.
Yeah, that and the fact that I'm the oldest of five kids, and like so I'm
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
See,
yeah, the oldest of five kids. So when you like corral them all in to like do what they're supposed to be doing and keep track of them, so I'm like yeah, perfectionist, overachiever, oldest of five kids, get
well,
everybody to
yeah,
do things. So
yeah,
yeah, but all
yeah.
of
I
it, but
can.
everybody has their own everybody has their own unique traits and their own history, and I think that it's really important for people to like look at what's your history, what can I bring forward, and what can I
Mhm.
use, because it's not necessarily what you learned in school, it's what you learned in the school of life, and then bringing
Mm,
all of those things together and using those and evolving and getting better, and I think sharing the information is hugely important. I mean, just to be able to
yeah.
share your knowledge with somebody else, I think is just awesome.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. So I've got to ask then, for anybody out there that is um, in this space of just trying to figure out how to word things, how to figure it out, where to even start, or, have tried it on their own, like me. I went to ChatGPT and tried all that stuff for quite a while. What is a piece of advice that you would like for them to know, or something that you can give to them to help them just understand how this process works, or the direction that they may want to go, or just something to maybe put somebody at ease through this crazy life of understanding words?
So I really do think ChatGPT is a good place to start. Okay.
Okay.
But it's a place to start. It's okay. It's okay to start and to get some words on the page. And then you can look at them and you can say, hey, that doesn't really sound like me, or that's not something that somebody would say. And you can get
Hmm.
other people to look at it and evaluate it, take the testimonials, take the feedback, listen to what people are saying. And then that's the best way to be able to put words on a page for you.
Yeah.
But I use ChatGPT. There's nothing wrong with using ChatGPT. I use it to complete sentences. I can't figure out the same word. I've used the word strategy 7 times. Could you please give me different words for
That's,
strategy?
that's very true. That is
It's
very true. That's
right,
another piece of advice to give to people that you taught me that was extremely valuable is, when you are going through and using stuff, make sure you're not repeating the exact
oh yeah,
same word. Because I was like, I don't see it. And she was like, yeah, but you just used it here. Like, we've got to break it up. And I was like, oh. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So, heads up to anybody that didn't know this, like, don't overuse one word 50
right.
times.
Oh,
Um,
and read your text out loud. Read your
oh,
text out loud. Excellent, excellent tip. I read everything out loud. I write it. I read it. I put it aside. I come back the next day. I read it again, or the following day, or whatever. I read it again. Read it out loud, because then you're actually looking at the words and you're not like skimming past everything. I know you don't
yes.
like it. If you have
Yes.
lots of breaks and bolds and highlights and italics, then it's probably not so bad to read. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely read it out loud. That's another great
Yeah,
tip.
definitely read it out loud. And you know what? That's something that I do when I write my speeches.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously you need to practice. It's the best way to practice it is by hearing yourself. But it's really interesting
Mm-hmm.
when you write something down, or if you people type. I actually like to physically write. There's something about writing that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you type things out or you write something down, it's really interesting how the narrative is slightly different in your head. But then when you go to read it out loud, which is when
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing in tonality and pauses and all these different things, you're like, oh, ew, ooh, wait, no, that doesn't work. No, no, no,
Right.
no. Scratch that out. No, let's try. Maybe this wording makes more sense. So I love that piece because I think that even when you have written items such as emails and content and blogs and stuff like that, you really do need to read it out loud because there are some people that actually enjoy reading their stuff out loud. They don't just read
Mm-hmm.
it in their head. And it really does sound different. I'd never thought about this. And I don't remember who I had talked with forever ago about this. And they were like, make sure that whatever it is that you write, like
Mm-hmm.
you read it out loud. And I was like, it really does sound different. You wouldn't think it, but it really does. Like
Oh,
you
it
have
does.
the ability to really add in different things versus whatever voice is in your brain that is
Right.
saying it back to you.
Yeah, and you're not missing the words. You're not missing words here and there, and you're
Oh,
not
that is
having
very
double
true.
words and stuff like this. And then, and you don't say strategy 17 different times in a minute and a half, because then it definitely
You
sounds
might,
like
you just,
ChatGPT.
or you do, it's just you be aware of that. No,
Yeah,
uh,
but you like the word.
Annette, you are like one of my favorite people. I have so much fun talking to you. Like we could just, I know every time we get on calls, we talk forever. So, okay. So as we come to a close, is there anything, a quote or anything that you would like to leave the audience with today?
So my favorite quote is "Just do it." That's one. I mean, just do it.
I love it.
You're all afraid of hitting that send button. We're all afraid of like, oh my gosh. Look, it's just an email.
Very true.
It's just a blog. It's just an email. I mean, your website definitely you want to think of a little bit more about, but don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. You can always change anything that's written in text. I mean,
Hmm.
do it way back when with whiteout on the typewriter, right? So that's one, and the other is done is better than perfect.
Mm,
Speaking as a perfectionist and stuff, I mean, you could rewrite stuff over and over and over and over, but it's better to have stuff done than to try to figure out, you know, try to get it perfect, find that perfect word. Use
yeah.
ChatGPT, they'll give you suggestions of words, and then you can pick the one you like the best.
Yes, yes, and I am definitely a fan of this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a recovering perfectionist as well,
Mm-hmm.
and the oldest daughter. So yeah, I get this, and
See,
I
there you
think
go.
a lot of us, we get in this space of how can I make it better? How can I make it better? How can I make it better? But you're right, you get in kind of this spiral, and like you said, you
Mm-hmm.
you will constantly find a reason to change it. So getting it done, getting it out there, and then like you were saying earlier, get that feedback. That's going to let
Mm-hmm.
you know how you want to shift it, how you want to change it, or if it did spark with someone or if it did
Right.
inspire, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think that was going to work. So I agree with you. Yeah, done is
Yeah.
definitely better than perfect. Well, Annette, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the podcast today.
Kat,
Please
thank you for
do.
having
You
me.
are so welcome. Please do us a favor. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can connect with you.
Okay, so I mostly hang out on LinkedIn, only because I can't figure out TikTok, and I and I don't know the difference between a reel and a story, but we'll get there, right? Like, just go with it. Just go with it. So I'm mostly on LinkedIn. Yeah, Annette Mashi on LinkedIn, and there you'll find my wonderful freebie, right? 3 steps to turn prospects into paying clients. Using email. So I've got a download so that I can zap, and you can add to the show notes and all that other good stuff. But
yes.
Yes. So you can learn to write like a pro and attract clients that you love.
Oh, I love it. Well, of course, we'll make sure we have all that information in the show notes. So it's super easy for you to find Annette and connect with her and use her services because she's phenomenal. So Annette, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Thanks, Kat, for fitting me in. I'm so excited to be here.
You are so welcome.
It was great. Thanks.
Thank you. To everybody else that's out there, I hope that, this really kind of gave you a different perspective. Maybe you aren't necessarily a business owner, but you do know you need to work on your communication, right? Mm-hmm. Again, this is something that you can utilize every single day, anywhere, right? From talking to your kids to how you speak to your spouse. But this also means that there has to be active listening. That means you're hearing the feedback that people are giving you, and then you are learning how to incorporate. And of course, we don't mean that you just change your entire personality, continue to be you, but it definitely does help when you do listen to the feedback that you're getting, especially if that feedback happens to be on repeat, might be something you need to pay attention to. So whether you are in business or work for a company, stay-at-home mom, whatever that is, understand that we do tell stories, we do communicate every single day, and knowing how to be on that level of whoever you are speaking to is going to get your message further than you ever thought it could. So until next time, please do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later. Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable